Welcome to the Growler, a Who Dey podcast hosted by Paul Dana and other bald friends like Mo Egger, Dave Nanametz, home of all your Bengals breaks, takes. Welcome to the Growler.
All right, welcome to the latest edition of the Growler. Balds don't lie. Paul Dana Jr., Jay Morrison here with you on a Tuesday as we move into Ravens week. What is going on, Jay?
Doing great. I thought I'd wear something to hide the fact that I'm not bald so that I fit in.
Yep, it's good. You do fit in. You're blending right into Balds Don't Lie, so I appreciate that. Of course, Mo Egger will join us to bring the baldness level back up to its proper levels in a little bit here. But Jay and I, of course, we want to get to some of the news, some of the things that are going on. You're going to hear from Lou Anarumo today as we spoke to him for a while on Monday about, all the problems and all the changes. The changes, they are blowing in the wind, Jay. It's happening. It has to, right?
Yes.
It feels like patience season has passed, right? I think we learned that in Carolina on Sunday that there will be no more patience from Lou Anarumo. It's either you play well or you stand next to me.
Yes, and we saw that. And I mean, what was his line? And we're not going to. I can't remember the exact line. Not going to.
Or play will not be tolerated by anyone.
Play will not be tolerated. So, I mean, you can't bench everybody, but
somebody has to play, though, Jay.
Yeah, and figure it out.
You need 11 guys not worth benching.
That might be hard to do at this point, but I mean, you see it there. It's the track record's there for a lot of these guys, and it's a slow start. I know everybody's wringing their hands right now, but I think Lou deserves the benefit of the doubt here that he can get this figured out. And you got some guys in new positions, but it's not been good. They got to win. It still wasn't great against a bad Panthers team.
Well, that's some hearty optimism that I'm sure that people weren't expecting to get from us today. But guess what? We'll dive much further into it than that. Again, Mo will join us. Send any questions, comments, anything you want us to talk about to the Growler Podcast at gmail.com. I can get to him with Mark on Who Dey Light on Friday, or Jay and I can get to him later on in the week. We're going to sneak a couple of them in. You guys have been great in sending in a bunch of stuff. We've got a great one that came in from Twitter that sent Jay into a stat dive that everybody's going to want to hear. Actually, I don't even know the results, so I don't know if you want to hear it or not, but you're going to hear it. So we're going to get into all of that here on the show. Keep sending your questions in, and we're going to have some Growler Bet recap, which is really interesting. Some run past or boot recaps, and I think we got some pretty good ARBIES for you today. I've got a video element on this week's ARBIES, which had me in tears in the Carolina airport laughing the other day. So, all right, let's. I do want to remind you guys, our next live show that we do, our next pregame live show, is going to be before the game against Philadelphia on the 27th of this month. Welcome to October. And so we'll be down there at BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar at the Banks. You guys know it now if you've been down there. Just an awesome venue to watch games, eat good food, drink Cincy Lights for $3 when you come to our show with the $6 Queen City Nacho tray. Their food is awesome. You can reserve a table for any big event. Anytime you want to make sure you have a great spot for the big game, whatever game that is for you, go to nationkitchenandbar.com. You can reserve tables there. Come join Jay on Thursday nights for the second chance drawing. Get yourself hooked up. If you have a ticket of a losing ticket from that previous week, you can drop it into the bucket and maybe you will win $100 in bonus bets, $100 in Nation Kitchen and Bar, or maybe the second prize of 50 or the third prize of 25 if Jay gets it again, because he's here to turn this into a job.
It's been great, and it's a lot of fun to watch the game. They're the huge TVs, and I've gone down the last couple Thursday nights and sat at the bar and watched the games and put my ticket in the hopper and would love to have some more competition. As much as I like winning, it'd be more fun if it was an actual competition.
I'm actually surprised you're not here talking trash about how terrible it is, so that people won't come down there and add more people against you, right? Like
I can't lie, it's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on here and let's talk a little bit about the news of the day. You know, I would say mostly it's a lot of injury update stuff, Jay. Trey Hendrickson, the Stinger, in much better spirits in the locker room on Monday. No sling, smiling, dapping up guys a little bit. The reports are no nerve damage. So wait and see was sort of what was being said by Zach Taylor. We'll see how he gets through the week, but certainly a much more optimistic view than when I saw him in the locker room on Sunday in the sling, and obviously pretty down and still, you know, seeming a little out of it, as you might imagine. So it seems like trending in the right direction, potentially can play this weekend, but hard to know for certain.
Yeah, and it's it's not unheard of, but you go back through the injury reports, and I do keep a database, surprise, surprise, of all the injury reports through the years. You just don't find a lot of stingers and see what the lag time is, how much time guys miss for that type of injury. And they're kind of like concussions too, where they can vary in severity, but good sign that he was in a good mood. And I was kind of watching, the team was in a meeting, and when they came out, I was wondering if we were even going to see Trey, and we did. And as you said, he was in a good mood. He was joking around with Sam Hubbard, and I think it would seem like there's a good chance he can play this week.
Yeah. And you just add this into the like 3 times a season that Trey has a near-death experience on the field and then plays the next week. It's just kind of Trey Hendrickson in a nutshell, it seems like sometimes. All right. Let's go to Myles Murphy and McKinley Jackson, who are both now eligible to come off of injured reserve. Zach Taylor made it sound like before Wednesday we should hear about their 21-day window opening. That means they have 21 days they come back to practice, and the team does not have to activate them, but they can practice, see how they look, see where they're at, and then at any point then they can activate. They do have to do it within that 21 days or else they revert to injured reserve for the season. So that suggests that if that happens, expecting to have both of those guys back within the next 3 weeks. The bottom line, though, Jay, is that Myles Murphy can contribute pretty quickly. There's got to be a thought that whenever he looks healthy enough, he can come back and get in there and play. McKinley Jackson has 3 padded practices to his name as a professional and hasn't practiced since August 8th. So that feels like a much steeper hill to climb for him to be somebody that they can even know what they're getting, much less putting him out there in critical spots.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, he might actually be closer to full health than Myles is, but you're talking about a rookie that hasn't had a lot of time on task, and just you talk about it all the time, getting used to the speed of the game for those guys in particular, getting used to the strength of the NFL game compared to college. And it's interesting that they're going to open that window right now. But I still would expect it to be closer to the end of that 21 days that they activate him than the beginning. And then again, though, things are so dicey on that line. Maybe they do activate him sooner and he's just there in a reserve role. And if you get in a game or you get a big lead or it goes the opposite way, you can throw him in a game and just let him kind of get his feet wet.
Yep. So it'll be a matter of time until we see how soon Myles Murphy gets back. And will it be this week? I don't know. You know, then that was their point. Get out there, see how he looks. I just think that there's hope, but it is far, far, far from a sure thing that he will be playing against the Ravens. And it sure feels like we've seen with a lot of these guys where there's going to be a ramp up period. It just feels like one of those things where the moment he went on IR, you say, well, it's going to be an IR. And then you're going to get the 2 to 3 weeks where maybe he's back whenever that is, but he's not all the way back and he's ramping up. And that's part of why you have, and then you get basically a half a season of Myles Murphy almost again, right? Because last year you only really got a half season of Myles Murphy too, but they need more and they need it quicker. So if that would be the most pleasant surprise they could get, if they could start getting a high end Myles Murphy and fast. We have BJ Hill. You know, he was close to playing against the Panthers. He's been ahead of Sheldon Rankins in this hamstring recovery for a while now. So I think the thought is that BJ Hill looks like he's going to be back. Lou Anarumo hinted at that with us too, that he'll be back this week and be a guy that can be a part of the solution this week. And boy, do they ever need him against the Ravens.
Yeah, and Rankins, I don't know at that time. Zach did say they would see how it goes this week, so maybe he starts working. He hasn't even been on the rehab field, so maybe that's what this week is: get him back on the rehab field, get him loosening up, and then maybe coming back to practice next week. But can definitely use BJ Hill. He's not the answer, but you just need more bodies in there for the rotation, especially. And we'll get into this more later in the week. But against that Baltimore running tech, you need all the defensive linemen you can get.
You sure do. The other news was everybody freaked out about Brad Robbins being activated from the IR. Look, when you have a player that is on injured reserve right at cutdown day, which is that new rule where they can have 2 days two players that they designate to return right at cutdown, so they don't have to like do all the roster gymnastics. They have to return. So if you want to bring them back later in the season, let's just say hypothetically that they would want to keep a punter who is breaking every NFL record right now and let go of Brad Robbins, they would need to return him, then waive him, so that then they would be able to potentially bring him back later in the season if they wanted to. If you just waive a guy off of IR, he can't come back to your team. So that's part of it. And this allows Brad Robbins, if there's another team that he wants to go to hop in with another team and potentially punt there if he is healthy. And it sounds like obviously he is healthy, but as much as I want the 2-punter attack, Jay, like I can't tell you how invested I would be in discussing keeping 2 punters and using them in different ways. Like, let's freaking go. Okay. Give me some fresh storylines. No, that's not what's going to happen. It's still going to be, we're still going to have Ryan Rico, who's going to be punt godding in his own way, trying to continue to break all these NFL records. Which reminds me, get your Uncle Rico shirts. Use Growler Pod at cincyshirts.com. And you get 10% off every order, especially the new walkout Growler shirt, the Uncle Rico shirt. If you haven't seen it, it's great. Go to cincyshirts.com, find that, use Growler Pod at the checkout. You get 10% off.
Yeah. I thought they might bring Robbins back and then cut him and then do the practice squad thing and just keep him around. That way he can still practice. That competition can kind of still be ongoing in the background at practice. I think that was one of the reasons they loved Rico's leg and what his potential, but there was that inconsistency. I don't know that 4 weeks makes you feel like that's completely gone and out of the question. You never know when it can go the other way, but what he's done so far has been impressive. And, if another team wants to sign Brad Robbins off the practice squad, they could do that, but it doesn't sound like that's the direction they're going to go. I expect them, it might happen while we're doing this show right now. Expect them to cut him today. And Miles Murphy was the other one that they put on the injured reserve automatically to return right at cut down day. So that one's going to happen at some point in the coming weeks.
Yes. All right. Before we move on and get to Mo and start diving into this defense and some of the stats and takeaways, I do want to remind everybody, I've talked about these guys before and this product before here on the show, but future fans, it is just one of the coolest ways to help your kids learn about football. We're our demographic really on this show. We're a bunch of dads on this show, and we all have kids, and we all love sharing sports moments with our kids. And we have some friends that are Growl Pals. They're one of us that created this product that it helps little kids become big fans. It was inspired by the Bengals run to the Super Bowl back in 2021. They're based in Ohio. They're one of us. They created these super unique, like storybook-led activity boxes, and it helps a kid as young as 4 understand football in sort of unexpected parallel ways. They don't try to explain downs. They just use a beanbag toss game that has 4 bags, and then you get 6 points. So when you move over to learning more specifically about football, they just can pick it right up. It worked with my kids. I had them out there. They got me running the route tree. They learn and they like figure out how all of it works, and it works across the board. I mean, it is so cool. If you want to be able to share football with your kids, but football is a really complicated game to teach, I can't recommend this enough. It's only $49.99 at futurefans.com. Use the code Growler to get 10% off, or just go locally to King Arthur's Court in Oakley, and you can unlock a lifetime of memories with your kids starting right now, thanks to some Growl Pals. So support the Growl Pals, the people that support us, and it's an awesome product, and it's great for you to. My kids were out doing the scratchy bottom hop touchdown dance just last night, going through the box that we had out there. So they're great friends with us, and I highly recommend it. If you have kids and you want to try to teach them the game, start there. All right. Now let's move to bringing in our friend and yours, Mo Egger of ESPN 1530. What's going on?
Look at this.
Oh, look at
there's
the future fans. There's the future fans box.
There's the box. Yes, I've got a 7-year-old. Yep. I'm actually going to play with my wife first, and then Crosley and I will because she needs to teach me about football. Yeah, here it is for those wondering. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I've got a 7-year-old, so this is awesome, and it encourages reading, which we're all about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if you could get some video of yourself doing the scratchy bottom hop touchdown dance, I think we'll play that on the next episode. There's no doubt about that. That's coming.
No problem.
All right. Mo, we're going to start you off with Jay dropping in some stats to kick this thing off here, okay?
All right, and then later on, Jay's going to help us make history this week on the Mo Egger Show.
Wow.
Yeah.
History.
Is
that a teaser, or are you going to tell us what history might be?
That's a tease.
Okay. I like.
I'll drop it after Jay's little stats.
Okay.
So delightfully condescending.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
So here's what it actually was a question that came in off Twitter. So shout out to checks notes. The Magic Man at Thoughts Bengals on Twitter says, look, the Bengals defense is bad. Basically, what is the history of teams that are in the bottom 5 after the first 4 weeks? Where do they finish? Is there hope? Can it get better? Need Jay on a stats dive. And Jay just said, oh, yes, I shall dive right in. So I await the result. Is there any hope, Jay, or are you going to kill the season right now?
Unfortunately, I am going to crush the hopes of everybody out there the way Lori Beavis crushed my hopes my junior year of high school, my first unrequited love. Hi, Lori. She's a huge Bengals fan. I don't know if she watches the show or not, but I was surprised because 4 weeks is a small sample size. A lot can change after 4 weeks. So I looked at points per drive, where the teams that ranked in the bottom 5 the first 4 weeks of the season, and then how many were able to dig themselves out. Last 10 years, that's 50 teams, 5 teams per year for 10 years, 50 teams. Only 7 climbed to within the top half of the league. Good news, bad news. One, I don't know what was going on in 2017, but the Patriots went from 32nd to 6th. The Bears went from 30th to 8th, and the Chargers went from 29th to 4th. Huge jump there. 2 of the other ones that did it were just last year. The Bears were 31st. They ended up 15th, and then the Raiders, with the coaching change, they went from 29th to 11th. So it can be done, but it's not just the rare success of climbing to the top half of the league. I looked to see how many of those 50 teams that were in the bottom 5 after 4 weeks stayed in the bottom 5 at the end of the year. 25 of 50. Half of the teams that are sitting in the bottom 5 right now are likely to be in the bottom 5 when we get to January.
Well, I mean, if you'd say, look, hey, what was it? So it'd be a 14% chance that they'll end up in the top half. You know what? At this point, I think Bengals fans will say that's actually an encouraging number, considering the other ones they've been asked to digest over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how I took it as well. All right. So there's a chance.
And actually 5 of the 7 that did it
there
were
is a chance.
5 of the 7 that did it were not just in the top half, they were in the top 10.
Okay.
All
So do you have, after Sunday, Mo, do you have a feeling of feeling better about the defense or worse about the defense?
The same, because I didn't feel very good to begin with.
Yeah.
So I guess if confirmation makes you feel worse, then you should feel worse. I think what adds to the feeling of sobriety is the fact that we all watched the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Right. So it was what we know about the Bengals, what we saw against Carolina, and what we know might be coming, which is Derrick Henry possibly running for 450 yards on Sunday evening. Paul, you and I talked on this podcast during the offseason about how the run defense was probably not going to be very good. Now, I tried to paint this rosy picture where I'm like, that's not going to matter. They're not going to give up a ton of explosive plays. Well, maybe it does matter. So, but the point is, we knew this going in. Obviously, things haven't gone the way anybody would like with all the injuries, and hopefully they get BJ Hill back. I heard you guys talking on the walkout about how hard he worked to try to play on Sunday, and so hopefully he's out there against Baltimore. But I mean, come on, let's be honest. The run defense isn't very good. The sobering thing is a lack of pass rush. I don't know how they're going to generate a pass rush. Now, you might say, well, Miles Murphy's going to come back and help. Sure. But is Miles Murphy's presence on its own going to take a pass rush that is abysmal and suddenly make it good? Like, we're dealing with a really low ceiling here. So maybe the floor raises with some of the guys coming back, but a really low ceiling. And so it was frustrating watching, Chuba Hubbard do what he wanted to do. And it was frustrating watching Andy Dalton have success. And the ease with which they moved the football at times was certainly sobering. But did you go into that game thinking, all right, this defense, this is where, had they played better, it was going to be a function of the Panthers being awful. The Panthers took advantage of a defense that simply isn't very good. And so the question for me moving forward is, how do they win? And how do they win big with such a massive deficiency in one major area of the team? That is the question that I have. I'm sure they'll have games this season where we walk away from it feeling like, all right, the defense took a step forward, but I just don't think there's going to be enough of them for us to feel like, you know what, this team's defense is capable of carrying it or capable of not getting in the way. I don't know. I don't know that there's been anything or will be anything to dissuade me from that.
Yeah, I wonder, the old saying that the best offense is a good defense. Could the flip be true here? Could the best defense be a good offense? And can Joe Burrow and the offense continue on the run that they're on and string together some early touchdowns? We've seen Baltimore just curiously abandon the run before, AFC Championship game last year. And if the Bengals can go out and get a couple touchdowns early, maybe a stop, maybe a ball goes off a receiver's hands, they get a turnover, and you get that lead, and then does Baltimore kind of go away from it? That might be the best path to victory. And it is interesting that, they've done a pretty good job against Derrick Henry in the past, but that was a totally different Titans offense. That's not Derrick Henry standing next to Lamar Jackson. That totally changes everything. And what you said about the pass rush, I mean, maybe this is the game where you don't really want the pass rush. When you get the pass rush coming in there and then Lamar takes off and burns you with his legs, it might be better just to have him sit back there and pat the ball and wait and throw it and take your chances, even though you're dealing with a secondary that's moving guys around and benching guys and everything that's going on there.
Sure, there's something to that.
We've reached such a low level that we're trying to sell that maybe not having a pass rush is a good thing.
Just this
maybe
team.
You want to never be able to get after the quarterback. Pressures are bad.
Sure.
Forget about it. This is the mental gymnastics.
Just let the blocker hold on to you and extend that block for as long as possible. That's Sam.
That's what you want. It's
just run into your blocker, okay? Trey, just run right into your blocker. Well, let them see if they'll hold you and see if we can get a penalty out of this.
That's where it seems like that's where it's at. I don't, to me, I'm with you. Like, I could live with the run defense, even being what it's been, which is not great. It's the fact that there has been no pass rush that has been the just debilitating aspect of this.
Right.
And it's just so hard to see, yes, health, like, right. I get it. And especially when Trey goes down, it makes it even more apparent of how thin and fragile even what they have is, because they're so uber dependent on him. And yeah, Miles Murphy and BJ Hill and eventually Sheldon Rankins and Chris Jenkins certainly has shown some hope of giving you something, and they're going to give him every opportunity this week. Like, all of that is great. But man, if that can't become better, because that's the point. If your offense is going to set that up, it's got to be you're playing from ahead, and now your pass rush can eat. Well, you're just going to let the other team come back on you if you're not actually able to go out there and make plays when you're in a position that they're having to drop back all the time. To me, that is the thing. And when you look at where does the fix come from, that's where I start. I don't know where you start, Mo, but there you got to find some way. And that's why we keep kind of coming back to Miles Murphy. It's the only new thing that should be able to give you some pass rush, or was expected to. It's just a lot on a guy who's coming off an injury and is going to need ramp up time. And you don't even totally know that he can do it anyway.
Right. Yeah. We looked at the schedule months ago and talked about the relatively few number of quarterbacks that scared you, the relatively few number of quarterbacks that if you just made it Burrow versus the other guy made you feel like the other team had an advantage. But the way you undercut that advantage is to let a quarterback who is average or below average or inexperienced or limited, you let him gain confidence. Right. I mean, Jane Daniels went out and played great against Arizona, but I mean, you could see on that Monday night game, you could see him, and we talked about the sideline, right? You could, as the game went on, you could just see confidence building. Hey, look, here are some things we could do against his defense. And so, all right, it might not be the worst thing in the world against Lamar Jackson, but boy, it'd be cool to pressure Daniel Jones and make him do Daniel Jones sort of stuff. And now the chances of that happening, or Jalen Hurts, who is guilty of 1,000 different turnover-worthy plays. Well, the chances of those plays happening are diminished if you can't get to them. So, and this has been an issue that we have talked about now for a while. I mean, in the aftermath of the 2022 season, they drafted Miles Murphy. Why? Because we all said, God, there's lots of things about this team. But, boy, the part that nobody wants to talk about is the lack of pass rush. So that was true when they went 12-4. They needed to boost their pass rush. Since then, it's only gotten worse. Why is it suddenly going to get better? And if the answer is, well, Miles Murphy's going to burst on the scene, how healthy is he? Is he really going to play this week? How effective is he going to be? I mean, like, there's just a lot of unknowns there. Miles Murphy, who has played one season of football in the NFL, is suddenly going to show up and take a bad pass rush, a non-existent pass rush, and make it something that the other team's offensive coordinator suddenly has to scheme around? No, that's not going to happen.
Maybe Miles Murphy and Sheldon Rankins together can, right? Sure. I mean, you're just, there's so much banking on health, which is understandable when you're down. I mean, I looked at it, really, if you looked at the preseason, like, training camp depth chart, 8 of your top 9 have missed time in a game or significant time, most of them significant time, going all the way back to the Cam Sample injury. Like, giving them the benefit of the doubt on that. And the idea that, okay, well, Murphy and Sheldon Rankins next to Trey are probably your second and third best pass rushers at this point, and you haven't even really seen them. You haven't seen them together, and you've hardly seen them at all. Some benefit of the doubt with that there's hope that they can turn that around. But man, it feels like that is a big wish and a big leap to think that those two guys are going to be able to get them there.
I mean, just getting Murphy back, he doesn't have to be the dude right away. Just getting him back lets you reduce Sam Hubbard's snap counts. And maybe that makes Sam better by only playing closer to 50%. He played 79% of the snaps. He's fighting through an injury. Yeah. He played 79% of the snaps on Sunday in Carolina. So I think that's the biggest benefit early when you get Miles Murphy back, and then you let him kind of grow into that role. And I haven't done my rewatch yet, but just on first watch, I thought, I mean, the Bengals didn't have any sacks and there wasn't any real pressures that popped, but I thought Joseph Ossai played better in that game. And maybe if he starts getting his feet wet and rushing more, he can be, maybe he'll never be what they expected when they took him in the 3rd round, but you start getting some more from him. And like you said, you get Rankins back, and I don't think it's what it is now doesn't mean it has to be this way the rest of the year. I do think there's a lot of room for growth there. Now you're hoping on a lot of stuff to happen. But I don't think it's totally out of question that this pass rush can get a lot better. It's not like you're stuck with what you've got and you're just going to have to manage it all year.
Osai had a couple of pressures that, you saw, but I also, I was going back and specifically doing a cut up rewatch of Chris Jenkins yesterday, and how many times I felt like I saw just non-effort from Osai, where he just gets washed out and is almost like going through the motions on a play where like that felt concerning to me. And that's the kind of stuff that we know how that would sit with and does sit with Lou Anarumo. And if he'll fall into that category of players that look, if you don't perform well, you're not going to play. And, that they just need him. I mean, they're down so many people, they need him, but you need more than just a couple of plays. I feel like it seems like the Osai, man, what a missed opportunity he's had this past month.
And, it's the focus is on the pass rush, but then, obviously every part of a defense impacts the other parts of the defense. And then when you look at the unit as a whole, Tony Pike and I talked about this yesterday. Like, what are they good at?
Yeah.
Like we know what they're bad at. What are they? They're not an elite cover team. They're not a defense defined by its speed, or its ferocity in dislodging the ball from receivers. Like, what are they good at? I mean, I watched Cam Taylor-Britt not so much get benched, but CB1 had his role reduced pretty dramatically in favor of a guy who has barely played. That's kind of a problem. Geno Stone has made as many plays as I have. A guy said to me on Sunday, well, he had that one tackle against Washington. Oh, okay, great. By the way, at the end of that one tackle, the guy gained 7 yards. Like what are they good at as a unit?
Yeah.
And
Nothing.
So if you're the other team's offensive coordinator, what are you sitting down going, man, we have to keep this area or this guy from screwing up everything we're trying to do in the game. And so, yeah, it's the pass rush, but the lack of pass rush perhaps, I guess, exposes a defense that right now, at least, there are some individual players who have done some good things. Von Bell had a pick and, but on a macro level, like, what are we hanging our hats on? What can you could say, well, they're not a great pass rush team, but boy, they've got some guys who are just not going to let you catch it, or some guys who are really hard to get open against, or they're just out scheming people in the back end. None of those things are happening.
Oh, and you hope that, you would get more than just Trey Hendrickson, but also you'd hope that you wouldn't be like once a game being like, oh, the safeties, right? I mean, the Geno Stone angle on the Chuba Hubbard run is one of the worst you'll see. And Von Bell, like being unable to make the tackle on the edge and just looking like he couldn't, like he's just a step slow and can't get there. And, getting beat by Xavier Legette across the end zone. I mean, like that was supposed to be something that was going to be solved. Like, no one's asking these guys to come in and run like Dax Hill, but their anticipation is supposed to be able to where you're not seeing these plays just pop over and over. And that's when you start just rolling your eyes and saying, man, like, they haven't even faced, this is Carolina. Right. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry portion of the program, but enjoy that on Sunday.
Yeah.
And that was the reason they brought Geno Stone in. That was the knock on him. He wasn't good against the run and not a good tackler, but you were banking on the ball hawking skills and having the lead and, being able to stop the run a little bit better than this and playing from ahead and letting him kind of patrol that defense. And that just hasn't happened. They've either been playing from behind or playing tight like they did with Carolina. And, it always felt like maybe we see Jordan Battle replace Von Bell at some point. Once they get everybody on the same page, but it's just that is one thing that the mass miscommunication has not been an issue. I guess that's the one thing that they're in the right, they're where they're supposed to be. They're just not making the plays. And it's just really surprising what's happened with Cam Taylor-Britt, where we really thought this was going to be his breakout year. He's shown enough. So if he can get back to that, and I think Dax is growing as a corner. It's still his first season doing it, 4 games in. So there again, that the coverage can get better, just like the pass rush can get better. But you're right, Mo. Right now, when you say what do they do well, there's nothing on that side of the ball.
They're good at goal line stands.
There you go.
Not what you want to be. I mean,
build on it.
It's nice to be good at goal line stands, but that's not what you want to lead the conversation with.
No. I mean, the word foundational was used about Cam Taylor-Britt, and it wasn't wrong, and no one laughed at that.
Yeah.
Like, that is true. When the one thing you thought you were going to be able to most count on is getting yanked out of the game and being called erratic and becoming a big part of the problem, boy, you're just a house of cards, even more so at that point. Like you had to be able to count on a few things, and for that to be one of those that goes away and is pulled out, is a stark reminder of where they're at.
He leads the team 4 games into the season in, quote, what is he doing? Of all the players on the team, he is the guy that I've yelled most. What is he doing? There are others. He's got a lot of but if we were to chart this, and maybe that's what I'll do on Sunday. If we were to chart what is he doing, Cam Taylor-Britt, essentially a quarter of the way through the season, easily the leader.
I love our Growl Pals, and so I'm going to put this out to them. Give me a rewatch. Somebody go give me a rewatch of the first 4 games and send me a what is he doing chart. Yeah. We want to see. We need those numbers. So feel free to do those. Send those to the growlerpodcast@gmail.com.
I'll tell you what.
We need to know.
Now, the loudest, I know we're talking about the defense, the loudest what is he doing of the season, the last play of the first half on Joe Burrow. And that was accompanied with words I will not say in your podcast. What is he doing? 6 seconds to go. What is he doing? I mean, it was loud. Joe Burrow got a big what is he doing at the end of the first. He's not immune from what is he doing. He got one.
No, I think everybody that had eyeballs in that stadium, whether you were associated with the team or the media or the fans or knew anything about what was going on with football, said the exact same thing of, oh my God. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think if Zach Moss doesn't slip, he scores easy. And then the slip is when it all became, what is he going to get in? So I didn't have a problem with the read initially, although Joe even admitted it wasn't his best decision. But that could have been a game changer.
Yeah,
I love Zach Moss being like, I didn't expect the ball to come to me, so it kind of took me by surprise. That's kind of why he fell, because he said, "I didn't. What are you throwing me the ball for?"
The what is he doing tracker, which is now going to be my thing. It's kind of like I went deep sea fishing once, and people got awards for the biggest fish, but also the most fish. And so Cam Taylor-Britt has the most what is he doings, but Joe Burrow got the loudest so far this year, and there have been some loud ones. That is the loudest. What is he doing?
The time I went deep sea fishing when I was younger actually does remind me of watching this Bengals defense, because the sea was far too rocky, and they were really like, the captains were like, I don't know if we should go out today. I said, all right, we'll take you out. They kind of like went against their own gut, and they should have. I felt like I was going to get tossed into the ocean. It was just up and down, and we were like belted into these chairs just so we could sit there. People were vomiting off the side. That's what it feels like watching the Bengals defense at this point. Was my deep sea fishing experience as a kid.
Yeah, the Bengals defense does sort of feel like chum right now.
All right, Mo, on that note, I will see you out on Coleraine today, as whether you'll be at the B-Dubs there, right?
B-Dubs and Coleraine. Now, I quickly want to say this. Thursday, Jay has joined our show on Thursdays for a long time, 420, and is always awesome. And I've been thinking about this. Our show has been on the air now for 17 years, and we've had on countless members of the media, writers, broadcasters, athletes, coaches. I think, and I'm looking into this, no one has ever been on our show representing 4 different outlets. And Jay Morrison is about to do that. Cox, The Athletic, Pro Football Network, and now Sports Illustrated. I think that is like the golden sombrero. I don't know that anybody has ever done this in the history of our show. So we'll make a plaque or send you some flowers or something. But congratulations. This is history.
I don't know about the golden sombrero has a negative connotation with the forced strikeouts. So
okay. All right. Well, we'll come up with something. But
the grand slam.
Grand slam. There it is.
Yeah,
it's a cycle. Yeah. Yes, that's right. It's the cycle. So for everybody's sake, I hope it stays at 4. But it is. I can't think of anybody else who has ever been on our show representing 4 different companies. So in advance, congratulations.
I guess that means I'm erratic.
Yeah.
No, you're a lot of things.
No one's benching you. We're keeping you in the starting lineup.
That's good. Good to know.
Mo, appreciate it. I will see you this afternoon over at B-Dubs on ESPN 1530 for our normal spot.
I look forward to it. See you guys. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, much thanks to Mo for dropping in his normal spot. Great stuff as always. All right, let's talk a little specifically about what happens next in terms of this defense and changes that can actually happen. I have a story up right now on The Athletic on sort of Lou Anarumo's push for change and sort of the end of patience season that we discussed earlier. Let's start with Cam Taylor-Britt and this cornerback rotation that we just discussed with Mo. So what is it going to look like going forward? All right, let's start here by bringing you a little bit of Lou Anarumo discussing what happened and his view of the situation with this quarterback and cornerback and what that path forward looks like.
Well, I think just the nature of how the game was playing out, I didn't feel like anybody had settled in. I thought Dax played a solid game when we brought in DJ. I thought he played a solid game. Cam was a little bit erratic yesterday, so we're not playing well. We're going to put somebody else in.
So that was a straight benching then for Cam?
I didn't bench him. He played the rest of the game. It just rotated. So
how do you envision that looking moving forward?
See how the games go. Everybody's up.
Was the erratic nature technique? It looked like he was getting beat off the release.
Yeah, no, it was a little bit technique stuff. Cam will bounce back. I have all the faith in Cam. He's gave me a big hug right after the game, and that'll never happen again. And I do trust him. He's played too much good football here for us in order for that. But again, where we're at, we can't allow anything to slip. So he's one of the guys that weren't counting on to play well. He's demonstrated that he can, and he has to do it consistently. So he was just a little bit erratic yesterday, and he knows it. So I'll say it again. I have all the faith in the world in Cam to bounce back and have a good game this week.
The technique stuff, is that certain stuff that you've been working on with him in practice that he's working through, or something that kind of more came out of nowhere?
No, just a little bit more eye discipline. Just making sure we're looking at the right things more than anything, and Chuck does a great job with those guys in terms of technique work, and they're getting the best coaching there is from Chuck does a tremendous job with those guys. So he'll get it right. He'll get it fixed between the two of them.
How long is your leash typically? I mean, it looked like you were ready to make that move pretty quickly in the game. So how often?
Well, it's just it just kind of was the 3rd and 5, and it's looks similar to Kansas City again, and I just and then the other play. So there's just a couple things I think that popped up, and DJ has had some good weeks of practice, and going in we had talked about getting them some more snaps one way or the other, because we're going to need these guys throughout the year anyway. And the opportunity just presented themselves.
Not that you ever want one of your best players to not be on the field in a must-win game, but do you feel like this can maybe be a positive learning lesson for the rest of the guys, where it's like Cam is someone you guys have viewed as one of your best players on defense? If he's someone we'll take off the field, that means everybody can come off.
Well, yeah, you never want it to be. It's not a threatening thing to any of the guys. I think they know that we're all held accountable to how we play, how we coach, all of it, and. We just have to make sure that we're staying on top of it, and poor play can't be tolerated by anybody. But again, our guys have the right mindset, and he handled it the way I thought he would. And it was again, right. I was walking across the field to shake the other coach's hand, and Cam beat me to it. So that will never happen again, and I trust and believe in it.
So maybe this is a wake-up call for Cam Taylor-Britt.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe this is something that he needed. Maybe coming off of Kansas City when, he makes the interception and dumb people like me apparently are lauding him and writing big feature stories about how he could be the next great corner. Did that feature turn him into Rod Jones? Like what? It's so odd because that felt like more the trend that he was in it going on after 2 weeks. It was the growth of this guy and what you'd seen last year and 2 games, and he made this pick and he was learning from his mistakes in game, and it really felt that way. And internally, I mean, Chuck Burks, who you hear Lou mention there, talked forever to me about how impressed he has been with Cam and his maturity and how he's growing into one of the top guys. And that was not fictional, right? And so to have these 2 weeks, maybe he just needed a little bit of a snap back into it and get grounded to earth wake-up call. So maybe the question that you heard Kelsey ask there is correct of, look, you've got to have, a sense of, hey, wake up. This can happen to you. This can happen to anybody. Maybe that's the case, but I thought that was an interesting part of what Lou was talking about of, just how quickly we went from where we were a couple of weeks ago to this.
Yeah, and because of that, because of where it turned, I think the quotes that he had that kind of went viral and that Zach was not happy with and talked to him about, I think those are in his head. And he's maybe, you talked about Lou with the eye discipline, and maybe he's trying to do too much to back up what he said. And he didn't think what he said was anything bad, the college offense thing. And he said he didn't regret it. But I think there is something to that where he's putting more pressure on himself because those quotes, and the Xavier Worthy one as well, went, I don't know if viral is the right word, but they definitely went to those opponents and had negative connotations. And I just, sometimes a player can get in their own head like that. And I don't think he regrets what he said, but he regrets the way it blew up. And it surely can't be a good feeling to have the head coach kind of calling you out to the media and saying, don't do that. And I think we've seen enough from Cam to believe that this is a one-off and he's going to get this thing straightened out. But it does put everybody on notice that Lou's talked about. He doesn't like to rotate corners, and now he's doing it, and he's doing it for a reason. And maybe it's a good thing that you're getting DJ Turner some work. I'm interested to see if Cam starts playing well again. Do they go back to just the straight 2 and DJ's back on the bench, or do they find some sort of way? You saw it. Dax Hill wasn't the issue in Carolina, but they still took him out for 6 plays and had Cam and DJ Turner on the field at the same time. So maybe Lou does lean into that and use all 3 of those guys.
Yeah, that's possible. Dax Hill might be cornerback 1 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's been the most consistent guy. I still wonder whenever the first time he locates the ball in the air will be great. Like if that hits the one thing that he's not there yet on, I don't think. But he's always sticky. He's there in coverage. Like he's been in the right spot. So I think that, tackling is where they got to work on things there. But I think as far as being a corner in coverage, he's been the most consistent to me. I think you have a better chance of, who's going to be out there at the end of the game. Is it going to be Dax and DJ Turner again? Because that feels like that might be some of the most likely scenarios right now. I'm with you though. I think this is rotation, hot hand for a week or 2 and see how this thing goes.
Mm-hmm.
But DJ Turner's played pretty well, so I think it's going to be hard to keep him off of the field right now. I probably early rotations and then gut hot hand stuff from Lou Anarumo. But like he said, everybody's up. Everybody's up. Everybody can go down. Like there is nothing for certain. Go out there and play well because they need it so badly right now. All right. So the other big thing I think, and I mentioned this earlier, doing a rewatch of Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins made more plays yesterday than I've seen Zach Carter make in a couple of years. Okay. And that was his second game. He's playing with a club. He only played 22 snaps after playing 25 snaps the previous week against Washington. They were purposely taking it easy with him. He's a rookie. They don't know what they're getting. He's got this club. He just had thumb surgery. They don't know how much that he can handle, in terms of all of that stuff. So small sample size this thing and see what you get. Well, they got something.
Mm-hmm.
They got production in the goal line stand play, which is one of the biggest plays of the game, came from him. He sniffed out a screen. He was always kind of holding his spot. You'd see, if you go back and watch, you see him more often than not holding his spot, and then a couple guys next to him getting pushed back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even Lawrence Guy or Osai just kind of, but it felt like Jenkins was always there, even darting into the backfield a couple of times, even if he wasn't making the play. He just felt solid, right? And boy, do they need that, okay? And so kind of asking around about that, the answer from Zach Taylor and from Lou Anarumo was he has earned more opportunity. They're comfortable with what they saw from a club thumb surgery perspective. What does that mean? He'll get all the snaps he can handle, is what Lou Anarumo said. Mm-hmm. And so that's coming. Against Derrick Henry and the Ravens, it sure feels like you're going to get a big, heavy dose of B.J. Hill and Chris Jenkins as your two defensive tackles, which means much, much less of Zach Carter, J. Tufele, Lawrence Guy. I'm sure they'll be part of the rotation still because they're still missing Sheldon Rankins, but it feels like a shift to Jenkins and with Hill back gives you they feel like a little bit more stability. And it certainly gives you hope with Jenkins after what you've seen, a very positive game from him in Carolina.
Yeah, I keep going back to, you and I talked to Marion Hobby during training camp about Chris Jenkins, and he talked about how he gets himself in some bad positions, but he's strong enough to get out of them. And so you've got a guy that, as he continues to grow mentally and as he gets healthier and gets rid of that club, and I think we're going to see a lot more of him. Sunday, he played 22 of 69 snaps, not even a third. I'd be stunned if that doesn't more than double at 45, 50 at least this week. I think he did prove a lot. And like you say, deflecting balls, they still got completed, didn't quite get all of the ball, but there was just so much to like about what he was doing. And it's not like anyone else is pushing him. That was just kind of a toe dip on Sunday. And I expect to see the cannonball this week against Baltimore.
Yeah, look at you. Yeah, love it. All right, let's go into the one question that all of you guys ask us constantly for multiple weeks now on Twitter, and that is about why is Jordan Battle not playing? Is he ever going to get on the field? It was asked of Lou Anarumo in our session yesterday and followed up on, and here was his answer.
A lot of fans have asked this, so I figured it'd be good for you. What's been preventing Jordan Battle from getting more snaps?
Well, he's continuing to get better each week in practice, which is a good thing. So, as we see him get to a position where I feel like he's ready to go, and the rest of the staff does, but he's certainly making strides towards that.
What's been the biggest difference? Because we saw him on the field last year, this year, obviously y'all have new pieces in the mix, but what's been the thing that maybe he's lacking in order for y'all to feel good to be able to put him out there?
I think just when he came in, just started off a little bit slow in training camp for whatever reason. And then again, has kind of progressed as we've gotten along. So if he continues that upward trend, then, we'll work him in there.
There's probably a long story you could write on the sentence he started out slow in training camp for whatever reason. And, I think that probably tells the story. Like, you get in a hole here and you fall behind and you prove that you weren't trustworthy to show up ready to go and be productive early on. It's hard to dig out of it. And it's especially hard to dig out of it when you have two veterans in front of you that are being praised for their communication and how they're keeping everybody on the right page. Now, people are yelling, saying, yeah, but they can't tackle. They're not fast enough. Maybe that's the case, but I think you hear it there from Lou. These trust issues matter. And is Lou in the right or wrong for not putting Jordan Battle out there? I don't know. We've talked about, though, I just feel like the value they feel like they would be getting in maybe an uptick in the physical play compared to Von Bell wouldn't pay off what they feel like they would be losing from the mental aspect and communicative aspect of what Vaughn does bring them. And maybe that's an area they go to at some point because they're just out of answers and it continues to be bad. So why not just go that way? But Lou, I think his tone tells you that time is not right now.
Yeah, when he says he started slow, is that figuratively, mentally, and getting? I mean, not much changed scheme wise, or was it literal where he was a little heavy and he was not running as fast as what they wanted him to? And again, I think you're talking about a young guy who let some things get into his head. I mean, he played pretty well last year and was really coming on, and then you see the team go out and sign 2 free agents at your position. That's got to hit you a certain way going into your second year. And yeah, you say all the right things about whatever's best for the team, but maybe he learned a lesson there where he was not, he didn't do what he needed to do to get ready because seeing the team not necessarily going in a different direction, but just bringing in new pieces to play his position. And I can see that where a young guy that would affect him in a way. And it's just like Cam. These guys are young and they get in their head sometimes, and it's a good lesson to learn. And I think a lot of young guys go through this for all different reasons, and that's where Jordan Battle is right now. I really do think he's going to be a key piece of this defense moving forward, but just not quite ready to get him out there yet. And I still think, I said it earlier, that they brought Vaughn in to be the traffic cop. He is older, and it wouldn't surprise me to see maybe Jordan getting some more of those snaps once everything's settled and everybody's on the same page. You're not having the communication issues that were littering the defense last year. And Lou just kind of laid it out there that he's getting better. He's moving towards where he needs to be to get on the field. And if he's willing to rotate corners, you would think he'd be willing to rotate safeties and at least get Jordan in there a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out, but it does not appear that Lou Anarumo thinks that time is right now.
No.
All right. Let's get to a recap of some things from this past weekend. The Bengals Growler Bet. It was pointed out to me, first of all, thank to everybody for the submissions, a ton of them again, to the Growler Podcast at gmail.com. It's pointed out to me that, hey, you haven't been doing your favorite subject headers because you're supposed to put Growler somewhere in the subject header so that we can make sure that we find it. You're right. Weak sauce by me. Don't like that. So one was from Daniel. He said, Mom, whatever happened to Donnie and the best of the Growler Bet subject headers? All right, I see you trying to bring it back to life. I see you doing that. And then we had hello, Growler, my old friend, in reference to Andy Dalton being back from our good friend Brian. So a couple of good ones. If you put some comedy into the subject header with the word Growler, we're here to give it a shot. Really, you do anything that makes me laugh in the email, there you're gonna probably get a shout out. So I appreciate that. Now, Dalton's passer rating was our question last week. His passer rating ended up being 83. David Evans had 73. David Bell, not the Reds, former Reds manager, as he wanted to point out with more time on his hands, 93. Pat Montgomery had 81. Cody Story. 84. Oh, so close. But you get nothing. We have no winners. Everybody, great effort. There was some people that really thought that Andy Dalton was going to turn in a legendary. I got the Assault and Dalton 14 point. Something like that. There was some people who thought he was going to go on the revenge is a dish best served cold up in the 120s. No, he was just below his career average at 83. No winners. We're trying to have winners. You guys are close. You just missed it. The air yards one, everybody was all around it, couldn't hit it. This one, everyone's all around it, can't hit it. I say to you guys, do better. Poor performance will not be tolerated, okay? We're not going to reward people that are just kind of close and not really getting the job done.
We did have one winner. I was closer. It's just for you and I. It's just whoever's closer, and I was closer. I had 92. You had 101. So I take the season lead 2-1. I was looking at the Twitter replies for the Growler Bet, and I thought I saw one way up in the 130s. And I was thinking, should we add some spice to this where whoever's the farthest away can't participate the next week?
That's a lot of background work. Or they could be called out. Which is, if you give me a comical way that you go down in flames, I'm here for it. I think we can give that what it deserves. But yeah, I don't know that I have the time or the bandwidth to go into the who's eliminated this week. Yeah. Then they're sending in emails under different email addresses, and it's a whole thing.
And they're trying to get eliminated so they get mentioned. So yeah, good point. We don't need to do that.
Jay, you wouldn't very quickly find a way around that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. That's child's play for you. All right, RPBs from last week. How'd we turn out?
So we had 2 of them. The first one was what's more likely to happen. The A team scores more than 35, A team scores less than 20, or Evan misses another field goal. We both went the same exact route. We both ran with plus 35, passed on less than 20, and booted Evan. Of course, the pass and the boot never hit, but neither did the offense 35 plus. The Bengals got within 1 point. So it was that one was just kind of a wash. Our second one was the Andy Dalton centric run passer boot. What happens first? Touchdown, interception, or sack? I said sack, passed on touchdown, booted interception. You went with touchdown, passed on sack, booted interception. First thing that happened was interception. Second play, their second drive of the game.
Yes.
So neither one of us hit either one of them.
Neither one, yeah. Well, that's wash on the RPBs this week. That's okay.
Yeah.
Although I would say getting 34 when 35 was the number is pretty close there. Pretty close there. That's that said. Although, man, again, that Evan kick at the end. I mean, he's good under pressure. That's one of the things that you count on is good under pressure, and that's what you bank on in that moment. A guy that has missed in recent weeks to go out there in that critical of a spot, and he does hit it. All right, let's go ARBIES. Do you have any ARBIES, Jay?
I do. So yesterday we're in the locker room, and the Bengals, the team was in a meeting, a PF or a NFL PA meeting. And old friend of the show, Mike Thomas, is there. He's in that role now, going from team to team and talking to players. And he comes out, and just great to see him. A big smile, greeting all of us, catching up and everything. And then he just drops a total bomb on us and says that they are pushing to remove locker room access for media. He's like, it's not going to happen right away. You're thinking more like next week. It's like, wait a minute, what is going on? And that's going to be like their recommendation. I don't see that happening. The NFL is going to have a say in this. It's probably something that's going to have to be collectively bargained. I don't think they're just going to kick the media out of the locker room, but I think everyone, even a lot of the players, realize that it's good to have the media in there, that those relationships are important. And I just, I don't know what kind of say the fans have, but if there is ever any kind of survey or anything like that, our coverage would be diminished, and then your enjoyment of the league would be diminished. And it was great to see Mike, but it was a bomb I was not expecting to get from him.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, the NFL has to be in agreement on that, and the NFL very much understands the value of having the media able to tell these players stories and understand who these players are and be there to get that access. I mean, you guys remember, if you've been around, I mean, what it was like coverage of the team during their Super Bowl run when it was all over Zooms and things like that. You didn't meet any of the other guys. You didn't really know who half of the guys on that team almost were. And because there was no real access to them, there was no ability for people to tell their stories, for you to get to know them, and for them to get their stories out there and build their brands. They might say they don't need us necessarily, but everybody's trying to build their own brands. And sure, you can start your own podcast and this, that, and the other, but everybody has stories to tell, and everybody in that locker room wants that type of stuff out there for them. And so, there's a lot to that. I certainly hope that doesn't happen and we don't end up back in a COVID style Zooms and mixed zones situation, which is just really bad for everybody. It's just it's no kind of a way for anybody to be able to put themselves out there. All right. I have one. This one had me in absolute tears. So in the post-game locker room after the game against Carolina, people, of course, were talking to Jamar Chase. It kind of happened in different waves because other people were talking. Burrow went. There was a couple different waves of people talking with Jamar Chase. I was in on an early one, and then I was over talking to a couple other people. And apparently something happened. So I retweeted a story after Jamar broke all those tackles and went for that long run that I had written the previous year about Jamar's remarkable ability to always seem to make the first tackler miss. And in that story, got a background nugget on how his dad, Jimmy Chase, who you saw in that video of him giving him the football to give to his grandparents, when he played in Little League and Pee Wee football, would say, come over here, Jamar, and put baby oil all on him so that tacklers would slip off of him, which is just the most unfair thing in the history of Little League, right? Jamar Chase, incredibly hard to tackle anyway, right. And now he's going to be covered in baby oil, apparently. And that's what he did. And so that was a part of that story. I retweeted that story, mentioned the baby oil as a joke. Well, Jeremy Rauch, our great friend from Fox, must have seen this and decided that it would be a fun thing to bring up to Jamar Chase in the post game, knowing that being a part of his past. Now, if you haven't been following what's been going on with Diddy in the news, they found like 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lube at his like freak show place, and it's a big part of his entire problem that he's going on right now. So keep that as background, something that I wasn't totally aware of, and I certainly wasn't aware that it got asked to Jamar Chase, and I'm going to guess that Jeremy was not aware totally of Diddy's situation either. Here is what happened in this exchange when Jeremy Rauch decided to ask Jamar if he had put on baby oil today.
You got baby oil on today?
No. We got to keep that for somebody else, bro. Yeah, that's not my question right there. I did do it as a kid, though. We can't even ask that no more, bro. It's too much going on in life right now with that, man. We can't do that. Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't do that. You can't. There's too much going on here in life right now. You can't do that. Now, I hope if you're never watching it on the YouTube, you can't see the actual reaction from Jamar Chase on this, where he just does this move of, what? Did you just ask me about baby oil? And Jamar, undoubtedly very aware of the situation. You can't be asking about that. There's too much going on in life right now. I was unaware any of this happened, and then was flying back on the same flight with a lot of our Bengals beat writer folk, and they were showing it to me, and I was just crying watching it because I had no idea all of this had happened based on this silly story retweet is where it started. And oh my goodness, too much from Jamar on that one.
That head tilt nod, I would imagine a lot of Bengals fans are going to screen cap and make the wallpaper on there. It's just such a funny, the look itself was funny enough. And then his comments make it even better. That was great.
Yeah, that feels very memeable every time like you hear another story about Jamar not being thrilled with a Bengals offer in their negotiations next summer. You're going to get that head tilt nod. Yep. What? Coming your way. Great stuff. Shout out to Jeremy. We love you, Jeremy. That was that's amazing. That's amazing. All right. Thanks everybody for listening and watching this episode. Make sure you catch us. We'll be back on Thursday as we give a little bit more preview of what's going on in the game against Baltimore on Sunday. Who Dey Light coming your way on Friday with Mark. So keep sending those questions, comments, suggestions, Growler Bet answers to the Growler Podcast at gmail.com. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you next time.